What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Joannis or Joe Hatagwa. I'm a Sierra Leonean American living here in West Africa. I'm in Sierra Leone right now, and if you want to know what I think about what's going on in today's news in the diaspora and Black America and all around the world, then this is the video for you. All right. We are live on all platforms. We're live. Manelik, what's up? I owe you an outreach, by the way. I just remembered that. But what's up? Welcome back to the live. Let's give it a second for everybody to join. We got a lot to talk about today. Some interesting things going on around the world. I want to talk about it. And then I have a personal update that I need to give you all and want to share with you guys. So if you are watching on Instagram Live, I just pinned a comment to the YouTube Live. You want to join the YouTube Live, you can join us there. Because I'm going to be going over a lot today, lots of stories, want to share my screen. So definitely come to the YouTube Live if you want to see what I'll be sharing, unless you just want to listen to it if you're on Instagram Live. All right, cool. Jose Cruz, it's been a minute, man. It's been a minute. What's good, brother? Been a minute. Can't wait to hear your thoughts on the Black world. Yes, for sure. Looking forward to it. Stephanie Royale says, howdy. What's up, Stephanie? Sharon saying, good evening from America. Good evening. Yes. So I'm in Freetown, Sierra Leone right now. I'm in a new estate from where I was the last couple of weeks. I'm now, it's another Chinese-owned estate. But I'm in this estate called Dream Atlantic Villas. Actually came to look at a house here back in 2018, and it was like minimum starting at 700,000. So I was like, nah, I'm not doing that. But I am staying here for a couple of nights before I go to Bo, and then I head back to Ghana. So lots to talk about today. I'm going to start with a personal update. Just because it's timely. It just happened last week, and just want to mention it to all of my subscribers and those who follow on Instagram. So you know what's been going on with me. It's nothing to do with the news stories, but it's news in my life. Mr. Bounce Los Angeles, what's up, man? Always good to see you. I see Maris just joined. What's up? Okay, cool. So before we get into it, just a little bit of housekeeping for those of you who are new. There's always new people joining the lives. Last week was an interesting one for sure. But those of you who are joining, my name is Joannis or Joe Hatagwa, as I mentioned before. I am Sierra Leonean and American, born and raised in the US, but both my parents are Sierra Leonean. I do live in West Africa now. So I spend my time between Accra, Ghana, and Sierra Leone. Most of my time is in Accra. I do come every so often for about 6 weeks here to Freetown, Sierra Leone, because I'm building a house. And so the role of my channel on YouTube and on my Instagram page are a little bit different. On YouTube, I'm just sharing my experience weekly. And also whenever I'm going to a new country, just share what I'm learning and what I've experienced in those countries, and then the house building project, and then I'm interviewing people as well. So that's really what the channel is about. The idea is if you're thinking about moving here or you're thinking about visiting, you can come to my channel and learn about it. The last couple of weeks have been interesting because of content I did about Nigeria, which, by the way, I had no idea would have that level of engagement. It's been interesting. It's been interesting to see the responses to that. But anyway, we're not going to get into that. We talked about that last week. We're going to move on. But this week, we do have some things to talk about that's going on in the diaspora and actually in Africa. So, you know, I love to get my thoughts on these things and to hear your thoughts or to read your thoughts. But these are things that I'm talking about in my everyday life, and I have been talking about, and I want to make sure to share it with you guys. Manelik says, I'm frozen on YouTube. Am I frozen to everybody else? Let me know. Give me a thumbs up if you guys can hear me. Let me know if you guys can hear me. And if I'm frozen, let me know on YouTube comments, because I'll have to switch over to another Wi-Fi if I am frozen. Am I frozen to everyone else on YouTube, let me know in the comments. And then on Instagram Live, let me know if you guys can hear me. Give me a thumbs up if you guys can hear me. I'm on 2 different Wi-Fis on Instagram. Okay, so Frank says he can hear me. Molly says they can hear me. Stephanie Royal says I'm not frozen on YouTube and she can hear me. So Manelik, that might be yours. Okay, so just everybody saying that they can hear me, so that's good. James Bond says, I saw a video yesterday about Kendrick in Ghana, and this Nigerian guy was mad, saying he did not visit Nigeria first and that he was disrespecting Nigeria. This entitlement is driving me crazy. All right, I don't want to get into like this Ghana-Nigerian war. It's already been a lot over the last week to read the comments. I realized, and having worked in Ghana for a year, I realized that those conversations can be aggressive for sure. We had a couple of Nigerians that I worked with, and everyone has some choice words for each other. But look, at the end of the day, our tribes have all migrated throughout these regions. Our countries are more similar than they are different. And so I think we should all be thinking about how we can together rise and get this continent back to where it needs to be in its rightful place on the world stage, as opposed to having these useless discussions, which are based on land borders that were created by Europeans anyway. So it really doesn't matter what country you're in, because I see Hausa tribe in Ghana. Obviously, that's a tribe that's a major tribe in Nigeria. Then you also have the Ga, who happen to be also Nigerians as well in Ghana. So I think we should, look, I'm not even from either country recently in my recent history, but from what I can see, there's a lot of animosity going on, a lot of conversation. Anyway, don't want to get too much into that. Let's get into the content. Stephanie Royale said, right, unity is key. And Sharon Gooding says there is strength in unity. Agreed, 100%. And by the way, that's just not our countries in West Africa. That's all the countries in Africa. We need to do better. Northern Saharan and Sub-Saharan, we need to come together more. And also Africans and the diaspora need to come together more. There are a lot of conversations happening which are more dividing than uniting, and I'm more about uniting. Okay. So let's get into today's topics. So the first things first, I actually have some sad news, and it's probably a little random to you all, but it's just important for me to share this. And I'm always sharing what's going on in my life. It has nothing to do with Africa. It's actually what's happened in the States. But I might have talked to you guys about this previously, but I have an apartment in New York that I'm on the lease for. We've been in that apartment since 2004. I've moved to different places. I moved to LA. I moved to downtown Brooklyn at one point in time. I moved back into that apartment in 2020 before I moved to Ghana. And I was there during the pandemic, or the early days of the pandemic. And my roommate, the guy who I moved in with, in 2012, he met a girl. 6 years or so later, they got engaged, they got married, they were expecting this year. And like on May 2nd, the day after my birthday, he hit me up and was like, my wife told me to reminded me to tell you happy birthday. And so, of course, in her true fashion, she told him to remind him to say happy birthday to me. She did. And so I just sent her a voice note, because he told me, she was having some pregnancy complications, but he was expecting that she'll be fine. So he asked that, I just send her some words of encouragement. So I sent her a voice note. She wrote me back just saying, thanks for the words, things like that. And basically said that hopefully that he remembered to wish me happy birthday. And I said that he did, you get the little thumbs up. Fast forward to not last Friday, but the Friday before, he called me to update me on the situation. And he told me that she had stage 4 pancreatic cancer, and that the first opinion was that they shouldn't do chemo because she was pregnant, about 7 months pregnant, or maybe even 8 months. And then the second opinion was that she should. And so they were working to get it fast tracked. Later that day, they lost the baby, and they were able to rush to schedule chemo for Monday. But sadly, on Monday, she passed. And so, you know, I lived with these two as a couple for 3 years in Brooklyn, and then, you know, went away for a while, came back and lived with them in 2020 during the early stages of the pandemic. I was in Vermont. You guys might have remembered me talking about being in a small town in Vermont. It was her family's house that we stayed in. They were kind enough to let us stay with them without knowing me, really, just based on my connection to their soon-to-be son-in-law. And I was really proud of him. I thought he found his soulmate. I really felt like she was the person for him. And it's so sad to the whole experience. It was, they had a GoFundMe that they were putting together for the medical expenses. And I found out actually that she passed 2 days later after she had passed, when I was sending the GoFundMe to another friend of ours, a mutual friend. And it was tough. It was tough. Dealing with loss is not easy. And also dealing with figuring out how to console someone who's lost two really important people in their lives, a baby that they had named and they were about to have, and, his wife, that was really, really tough. And so one thing I'll mention to you all is do as much as you can to research how to console people who have been through it. You never know how important that can be to helping someone deal with something. I'm trying to check in with him as often as I can to see if he's okay. He's with family right now. Obviously I'm really far away, thousands of miles away across the Atlantic. But I'll be there in less than a month. And so, the thing that I've spoken to him about and other people about is that, when you deal with this kind of tragic loss, you have lots of family and friends consoling you for a period of time, but they all have to go back to their lives at some point. And so I felt really bad because I couldn't be there for him physically in person, because of the circumstances in which how everything is working out with my travel. But what I do know is that I will be able to be there once everyone has gone back to their everyday lives. So it's been tough with this whole situation, obviously being all the way here and not really being able to be a part of the, to be there for him while he's grieving and to console him and to, just let him know that, I got his back and, I'll do whatever I can. But, I called and, he and I have spoken a couple times, and, I'm trying my best to try to keep a positive attitude and take how important she was and what she was to different people around her and apply that in my everyday life. People don't remember what you say, they remember how you make them feel. And I would say one thing about her was that, like, she was always really kind and really generous, way beyond like what's necessary in terms of generosity. What I mean by that is, when she would cook for them, she would also make extra and always offer some to me, even though, I'm like kind of the third wheel. I'm the other guy in the apartment, right? But she was always nice enough to ensure that there was something for me. She was gracious enough to open up her family house to me in Vermont, and because of the living situation, they have a basement apartment. And, I requested to be in the basement apartment just because they're all a family and I'm kind of a separate person. So I didn't want to be in the main house and all in their space. And they accommodated all of that, and it's tough to try to put into words how someone who you spend, a part of your life getting to know, but, you just take for granted the fact that, that's Alex's wife, but her and I did have a relationship outside of him and her as friends, right? She knew my ex. They were cool. They had a couple of conversations, many conversations. Her and I had many conversations about all kinds of different things. And, she was just a bright soul. And, I do think that she will be missed by a lot. I got a chance to see her when she first moved to New York from that small town in Vermont all the way up through to fulfilling her dreams and being able to put on events at New York Fashion Week and being invited to Paris Fashion Week. So to see her come in to New York as like a 25-year-old, I think she was when I met her, to, you know, her recent passing at around, I think 33 or 34. It's just, it's crazy to see. And it's wild. I just got a call from one of my cousins. He just found out, you know, and, you know, we're all just trying to figure it out. I mean, it happened so fast, you know. I mean, literally in March, he and I were talking about when I go to New York and, you know, the room that I normally stay in is going to end up being, you know, the baby nursery at some point. And, you know, in 2023, how are we going to work out my living arrangements there? Whenever I come to New York for work, I'll be there for extended periods of time. And, you know, it's just tough. And the thing is that she lived in that apartment that I'm going to be going back to in a month. So that's the thing that I don't know how I'm going to handle it. But, you know, it is what it is, you know, like, I mean, you know, I have to try to continue to move forward, and I've tried to stay busy and be productive over the last week. But, you know, that's why when it comes to like new videos and stuff, I've been editing and re-editing some videos that I'd already posted and reposting those just to give you guys content and put new content out, even not new content, because of the circumstances. Anyway, you know, I just wanted to give you guys that note. But I will say this, there is a GoFundMe. If in fact you are in a position that you can help, it is entirely up to you. They obviously incurred medical expenses, and also they're working on, you know, a celebration of life, funeral expenses, all of that kind of stuff. So they do have a GoFundMe. It is totally up to you. If you can, please donate. I will put the link to the GoFundMe in the YouTube. So, and YouTube and Facebook, if anybody's watching on Facebook as well. On Instagram, I'll probably post it in my story in a day or so. But if you go to the link pinned on Instagram Live, it'll take you to the YouTube Live, and you'll be able to see the link to the GoFundMe. But yeah, so that happened. I found out last Wednesday. She passed last Monday. So it was a really tough day for me last Wednesday, to be honest with you. I haven't had a close loss like that in a long time. And so I'll definitely say it was definitely shocking, to say the least. But yeah, so let me send you guys the link here. That's the link to the GoFundMe. If you guys can support and you want to support, totally up to you. Feel free to support Sarah and her family after this loss. So I'm gonna go through a couple of comments. I see you guys, you know, sending your condolences, and I appreciate it. Shout out to DB, first of all, for joining. Thank you. Appreciate that. So this is everyone just saying they can hear me loud and clear. Miss P had joined. Sharon says, my condolences and prayers to her family. Thank you. Stephanie Royal, keep the good work, bro. Are here to support the channel. Thank you, Isa. I appreciate it. Stephanie is saying, rest in power, mama and baby. Yeah, I mean, he lost both in a span of like 4 days. You know, prayers to your friend. I appreciate it. My condolences to the brief family. May his soul rest in peace. It was actually a girl, and his name is Alex. So they were gonna name her Lexi, and yeah, so they had a name for her and everything. I mean, they had plans for the future, right? As you do. May they rest in eternal peace. My condolences to the family. Thank you. Sawina says, sorry for your loss, praying for the grieving family. Life can be so unpredictable at times. Yeah, it can be. Paul, what's up, Paul? Paul is my contractor. I didn't even know Paul joins these the YouTubes, but thanks, Paul, for joining. So Paul is my contractor. He's the one doing all the work on the houses that I've been talking about, on the house that I've been talking about. Miss P says, sorry for your loss. Thank you. I appreciate it. James Bond says, so sad. Sorry. RIP. Thank you. While A says, so sorry, Joe. Sincere condolences. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So I appreciate all of the condolences and the prayers and whatnot. I will let Alex know that you guys have sent your prayers and your thoughts. Mr. Bounce Los Angeles also sent his condolences. I appreciate it. So yeah, I don't want to spend too much time on that. I just wanted to let you guys know, because every time I do a live, it's what my experience was over the last week. I know some people felt like I was milking this Nigeria thing because last week I was talking about the previous week, but that was what happened the last week. So those of you who are new, who came because of all of that stuff in the previous 2 weeks, this is what my lives usually are. It's what happened in the last week in my life, generally in Africa. But this was a big enough update that I wanted to mention it to you all and just let you all know that there is a way to support there. And whatever we can do to support her. She was a great person, and she will be really, really missed. Okay. So with that, I want to get into some of these news stories in the diaspora and a little bit in Africa. I'm going to end on a light note. So I'm going to start with some of the other more serious topics of discussion, and then it'll get more light towards the end, because I don't want to end this on a solemn note. But I do want to just get into some of these things. So over the last couple of weeks in the US, as you guys know, there were some mass shootings in the United States, right? And the one in Buffalo in particular stands out to me because of the reasoning, at least the alleged reasoning behind this experience, right? This mass shooting. And so I thought it would be prudent and important for us to discuss the story overall, the manifesto, the alleged shooter, or the shooter is pretty obvious, the shooters, what he says his reasonings were, and how it can be inflamed, and what are the things happening right now that are leading to people having the kind of thought process that this guy had. Now, many people are talking about the potential for mental health issues, and that's probably the case. It's unlikely that someone who has all their mental faculties would do something of this sort. But I think there are things that are being done to stoke the fire, to encourage people like this to have the kind of thought process that he had, not necessarily to encourage him to take on the role that he did, but to indoctrinate him into this thought process. So we're going to talk a little bit about white replacement theory and the great replacement theory. There's two different terms that it's used to describe it. But before we get into that, I just want to give you the story overall of what actually happened in Buffalo about 2 weeks ago, a little over a week and a half ago, so we can at least be all on the same page as to what happened and who the victims were. And then we can talk a little bit about this kind of this great replacement theory, which I think is being rebranded now so that it doesn't have the white connotation associated with it, because those who want to continue to say it don't want to be seen as white supremacists. They want to be seen as people who are just concerned for American citizens. And so what it does is anyway, we'll just get into the stories, and then I'll give you my opinion and my thoughts on it in a second. So let's just first talk about what exactly is the story, right? So 10 were killed and 3 were wounded in this shooting, right? So this was not a situation where there were no victims and nobody ended up dead from the scenario. So it is not a laughing matter at all. It's very serious. And I'm going to just go into the story a bit. And I want to make sure you understand what exactly happened. And then I want to get your thoughts, because I have a lot of thoughts on this in terms of all the things associated with this. I mean, there's race relations issues here. There's indoctrination. There's the Second Amendment in the United States, which can be interpreted different ways, but for the most part, it's interpreted as the right to bear arms, for the public to bear arms. That's how most people interpret it today. And for better or for worse, we have Fred Hampton and the lawyers of the Black Panther Party actually to thank for that, or depending on how you feel about it, maybe not so much. And so, I mean, they had different reasons for why they thought it was important, but it's definitely something that was the shift in the thought process came from the Black Panther Party, believe it or not. Okay, so I'm going to share my second screen here, And I'm just going to go through a bit of information on the story, right? So a gunman, a white gunman motivated by hate and dressed in tactical gear killed 10 people and wounded 3 others Saturday afternoon in Buffalo, at a supermarket, official said. The suspect is an 18-year-old man. He shot 13 people, 11 of whom were black and 2 who are white. It's at a supermarket called Tops Friendly Market, and that's what the Buffalo Police Commissioner said. Officials said he streamed the attack on a social media platform. A Twitch spokesperson said the platform has investigated and confirmed that the stream was removed less than 2 minutes after the violence started. So at least there is some good news that they can get to that sooner than later. I believe there should be a longer delay on these things, and they should have a better job of doing AI and checking for live streams. This is something that they were all warned about. All the platforms were warned about when they were starting to do live streams, and they ignored these warnings. Every one of them. You know, this is back a while before even all the platforms had live streaming, but they were all warned before they were going to start live streaming that these things could happen, and they did not do anything about it to preemptively work through things that could stop them. So since there's been a few mass shootings on these platforms, they've now started to institute reactive processes to try to stop these things from continuing. But anyway, that's basically the overall story, right? So 18-year-old suspect, 13 people were killed, 11 of whom were black. And a cashier there did say, a Caucasian cashier there did say he yelled at her, I think, or him, N-lover, right? The N-word lover, which is, I mentioned this before on a live before, that where I went to boarding school in Pennsylvania, we did play a school that said that to some of our white teammates, called them N-word lovers. So I'm familiar with hearing that term for sure. In any case, so this is the basics, right? Now, there was a 130-page manifesto, if I'm not mistaken, which leads most people to believe that he was likely ill, because to write that many pages seems to be a little bit off. But then, you know, I see some people saying that they don't think he was mentally ill. Some people believe that he was perfectly sane. Like Pamela saying the boy is perfectly sane. He was indoctrinated into the lifestyle. So I think she's saying he does know better. Yeah, I mean, I think that is the sentiment of a lot of people. So let's get into the Great Replacement Theory. Al Jazeera did a good job of explaining it. They're going to be better explaining it than I am. So we're going to allow just the Al Jazeera video to explain it, and then we'll talk about it afterwards. Because I think there are some things here. And look, for those of you who are right-leaning, in terms of right-leaning in the United States, and you are more conservative side of the aisle, Republicans, whatever, I really don't care what people's political affiliation is. What I care about is how people who are the voices of a large number of people, what they say, regardless of what side of the aisle they're on. So my issue here is that someone like Tucker Carlson, who's been talking a lot about the Great Replacement Theory, he used to say white replacement. Now I think he says Great Replacement Theory. And he's now also saying it's Democrats. But he's the focal point of some of these discussions, and deservedly so. He cannot be blamed for the shooting, but he can be blamed for inciting the idea more on a really large platform. He by far is the most watched cable news anchor in the entire United States, right? Nobody on CNN gets watched as much as him. First of all, Fox is the biggest news station in the United States. I don't know if you guys know this, but it is the biggest, right? And he is the most watched anchor on the biggest news station. So by far, he's bigger than anyone. Pick a name: Anderson Cooper, Don Lemon, Rachel Maddow, all of them. It doesn't matter if MSNBC, CNN, Fox, he is the most watched. And so when he says a lot of the things that he says, he's inciting a lot of different people who can potentially have a response like the one we saw in Buffalo. So let's quickly press play on this video, and I'll let the Al Jazeera explain what the Great Replacement Theory is. Let me turn up the volume a bit. Make sure you guys can hear it.
In other words, you're being replaced and there's nothing you can do about it. So shut up.
So he posted a document online, and a lot of it was about the Great Replacement theory, right?
This race replacement theory that he talked about in this manifesto. There are people who are pushing this hatred on these young people, indoctrinating their minds to go out and commit violence.
Replacement theory is the idea that white populations, both in North America, here in the USA, and in Europe, are being replaced by minority populations, largely through immigration.
So one thing that hasn't been mentioned so far is a big part of this discussion. That's the reason why Tucker Carlson talks about it so much, that hasn't been mentioned. I don't know if it gets mentioned later, is that the idea, though, that someone like Tucker Carlson has is he's saying that is why Democrats are it does come up later, but why Democrats are letting immigrants in the country, because they want them to vote. They want the immigrants to vote Democrat, right? And so, which, by the way, if many of you know, there are a lot of Mexican Americans, first generation, and others that, and all of Black Americans that are now voting Republican, to be honest with you. So I don't know if this idea that he's perpetuating is the real thing, but it's to tie it all to making the other side seem evil, right? Like the Democratic side seem evil, and to give you a reason to say, I'm right, you're wrong, and I'm good, you're evil, right? That's the idea. And so you use things like this. Now, they go into the fact that this theory has its roots in French nationalism. And well, let's keep going, but sorry, I have to pause the video because of copyright, all that kind of stuff. So I just need to pause it so that I can talk about it. But let me go back to pressing play. So it dates back to the early 1900s, right? Became a popular theme of right-wing media figures.
If you suggest the Democratic Party is trying to replace the current electorate, the voters now casting ballots, with new people, more obedient voters from the third world. But they become hysterical because that's what's happening, actually. Let's just say it, that's true.
It's extraordinarily serious in part because of how far it's gone and how deep into mainstream culture this these type of white supremacist talking points have gone, right? Because we hear them on Fox News, we hear them coming out of Tucker Carlson's mouth, which a lot of people are talking about right now. But we also hear them out of Republican politicians.
1 in 3 Americans, a recent poll suggests 1 in 3 Americans believe that there's a plot to replace those born in the United States with immigrants for electoral gain. 1 in 3 Americans.
Fundamental to this is a zero-sum notion of power and benefits and rights, that if minorities, if immigrants are given rights, or if they're given benefits, material benefits, the only way that can happen in this worldview is that that's taken away from them.
So to be clear, right, the idea here is, he said zero-sum game. What that means is that one person wins, someone else loses. So what he's trying to say is the way that these people think about the Great Replacement theory is that if rights are given to immigrants, it takes them away from them. And I've heard this as a common talking point by not just white Americans, but also other Black Americans. So this is a conversation that is happening on with Black Americans as well. But there is no idea of the replacement theory for Black Americans. It's something that you hear with white Americans, and it really does come a lot from their news sources, right? So Fox News, like I said, that's why that poll that showed 1 in 3 Americans. Now, obviously, it's a poll and it's a small subset of people, but that poll suggests that 1 in 3 Americans believe that this is being done for electoral gain. Where else would they get that from except from the media outlets that they watch? Fox News, number one, OAN is another one. There are a few others that are loose with this terminology, right? And these descriptions of how immigrants are coming to take your jobs. Immigrants are coming to, commit crimes in your communities, right? And for someone who was born of two American immigrants, obviously born in Sierra Leone and moved to the United States, I've always taken offense to the idea that, the majority of the people, or even a large group of people who come over as immigrants, are there to commit crime. Most people are there to survive and to have a better life. They're going for the American dream, which was, by the way, perpetuated by the United States, right? That is their big thing, is the American dream, right? And so to then turn that around on people and say, you're now trying to replace us, is really, I think, really detrimental, and it has really, really negative impacts, like people like the shooter that took part in the shooting a couple of weeks ago on Saturday. All right, so let's get back to the rest of the video, and then we'll open it up to the comments and the questions from people in the audience.
I and all of you reject the lie. I call on all Americans to reject the lie, and I condemn those who spread the lie for power, political gain, and for profit.
Okay. So I guess we didn't need that last part because it was just Biden doing what Biden does. But anyway, so to be clear, right? Let's get some of the comments, because there's a bunch of comments here, and I think it's important to give you guys a chance to be heard. So let me pull up what you guys have said. First, let me see if there's anything on Instagram Live first, because I've been mostly focused on the YouTube. Like I said, those of you watching on Instagram Live, if you want to see what was on the screen, just go to the YouTube Live. The link is pinned. So Pam is saying they have a glitch. Don't get me wrong, but the ones pushing the agenda know better and won't do better. Yeah, right. Exactly. Correct. I agree with you 100%. Someone like Tucker is a very smart guy, and he knows what he's doing. Now, I don't think he anticipated someone to go shoot up a supermarket. I think his goal was just to get people to vote Republican, but that is still sometimes what the outcome of something like this can be. All right, so let's get to some of the comments that people are saying. So my cousin Jaya is saying, in my opinion, if you have a mental capacity to plan and go through with these plans, and you're mentally capable of receiving the consequences of the actions. I agree. I think, when you think about how the prison system works today, right? The idea is supposed to be to rehabilitate people. However, what tends to happen in these situations is the plea of insanity, and the push by the defense of people like this to be able to go to a mental institution as opposed to going to into the prison system. And I do think that someone who is capable of committing this kind of a heinous act should receive mental health treatment while in a prison system. That's the way I think it should happen. So they should still get the treatment that they need, but I think they should be in the prison system, because I don't think that it's fair to those who would be in with them in the mental health facility to have to be around them. And I think that they were aware enough to do it, because this took massive planning, right? He was wearing armor so that he could not be injured if someone returned fire, which actually did happen, right? So, and he was obviously apprehended, alive and well. Interestingly enough, all of these mass shootings that happen this way, when it's not people of color, tend to be apprehended, alive and well. Now, I will say the subway shooter a few weeks ago was a Black man. He was apprehended later at his house. But in general, when a situation like this happens, they are always apprehended with no issues. And usually mental health is what comes up, right? That's the way they describe it. Whereas if police kill an unarmed Black man, it's usually their criminal history that comes up, right? And so that's the comparison that a lot of people are making today. And so Jai is saying he literally pointed his weapon at a white person, then apologized and continued on his rampage. So, you know, these are the stories that are coming out post what happened. So Stephanie Rose say white supremacists love Tucker Carlson. These pundits are whipping up insane people. White supremacism, in a way, is an insane way of thinking. Yeah, I agree. I think that we should all think about equal footing, equity for all, and, you know, let the best person win, right? But with all the same access to the same resources and the same information, right? Agreed 100%. So when you have people like Tucker, what Tucker's doing, right? And Tucker appeals. Let me explain to you how Tucker, because I've watched Tucker Carlson's show, right? He appeals to the folks that feel like they've been left behind in middle America, right? White Americans who live in towns where there are steel mills, there are coal mines, car factories, right, where they have all gone away, right, due to the idea of more cleaner energy. Coal mines have been done away with. We import coal, and when I say we, the United States imports coal from elsewhere. They don't really do a lot of coal mining anymore because of capitalism, right, which Republicans preach the most. Many of those car companies have outsourced their factories to Mexico and China and other places for cheaper labor. So Americans are no longer getting paid for those jobs, but those people are blaming immigrants, right? And Tucker does a good job of incensing those people by reaffirming that to them, right? By saying that immigrants are taking your jobs, not that the jobs have been going away because of the change in the way we do things. It's really mostly immigrants have been taking your jobs, or globalists have been taking your job, which I think is a blanket term to try to speak to the idea of a group of people who are purposely trying to keep them down, right? And so they're trying to keep themselves as American as possible, America the way they wanted it to be. You know, they want to make America great again, back to where it used to be, the way they liked it. And they want to ensure that they can get those jobs back. Unfortunately, those jobs aren't coming back. And so it's just most politicians aren't good at telling them that and giving them alternative routes for finding new jobs. They're just telling them that they're going to get them their jobs back, and everyone's lying. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. Everyone's lying. Those jobs are not coming back. They're not coming back. And so those folks need someone to blame, right? It's not their education. It's not their unwillingness to learn a new skill. It is someone else had to do it. It's someone else doing it to me. Has nothing to do with me. And that's the way a lot of Americans think, regardless of what race you are. But in this instance, this is how they think, right? And so this is why someone like him can see this as like he, in his mind, is a hero, right? He thinks he's going out and he's doing some good for those folks who feel like they're getting replaced, right? This is in his mind. And you think about like the villain, and I hate to do this to equate it to this, but this is the reason why comic books were created in the first place. A lot of times they were built to kind of mirror what's going on in life and kind of teach kids life lessons. But what you notice with all of these comic book villains is they think they're the good guy, right? They think they're the good guy. You think about, if it's a big movie, so I'm going to use it. I'm a Marvel person. Thanos, you know, snapping his finger and wiping out half the universe, right? Because then with half the universe gone, everybody's going to appreciate their life much more, right? And so it's a wild way of thinking, like you wipe out half the universe. How is that a positive way to move forward? Well, why would going into a supermarket and killing 11 people be the best way to fix his challenges or other people's challenges with jobs and whatnot, right? And it's that same idea that these guys have in their heads, that they're being a hero and going out and doing something. Not everyone who does this does think that way, but a lot of them do. And when you see these message boards like 4chan and 8chan, where people tend to continue these conversations because they get deplatformed from Twitter and Facebook and YouTube, they go into these other more niche sites where they can be in the dark and they continue to have these conversations. And then it further indoctrinates them further than what they got on the news. And then it takes them to a level where he got to, right? So anyway, Sharon's saying, tell the truth, Joe. I'm doing the best I can. So Menelik says he's white, the right color to get off. His lawyers will have him plead insanity. It's interesting how people of color in America, not just blacks, are considered terrorists. Yeah, so let's think about this, right? So when you, so there's a term called domestic terrorism, right? And it applies to people who commit heinous terrorist acts who are domestic, right? American-born American people, domestic to the United States. For whatever reason, there are those on the right. I don't want to just say those on the right. It is that, but like there are many people in America who do not want to label them that. However, when there is a terrorist action that happens from someone who happens to also practice Islam, they're very sure to make they were sure to make sure that Barack Obama had to say Islamic terrorist. They wanted him to say those words, right? But they're not willing to say domestic terrorist when they're talking about someone like the gentleman, the guy, the kid, the 18-year-old who went into the supermarket and shot a bunch of people, right? That is domestic terrorism. White supremacy is included in this discussion. And also maybe there's some mental health, maybe, but that's what they lead with, right? So the stories now following on Fox is mental health, right? No one's talking about how easy it was for him to access a gun, you know, and the kind of gun he was able to get, right? No one's even talking about how to have common sense gun laws with people who may have mental illness, right? These are all parts of the conversations that need to happen. I'll get into that in a second, but I just want to read a few more comments. So Jose Cruz is saying black diasporans should all be seriously considering Africa and the Black Caribbean. I agree 100%. You know, you don't see these things happening well, first of all, these things don't happen here. And if it does, it's very infrequent and it like very rarely happens. Stephanie Royal says, Joe, you hit the nail on the head. So let's talk about this, right? Let's talk about gun laws. Because I mentioned this a little earlier. The Black Panthers were good at interpreting the law, right? And some people credit them for attributing the Second Amendment to the right to bear arms for most people. This had been argued in the Supreme Court a few different times. So this is an amendment to the Constitution. Don't know what year it is, and I'm not going to be able to try to tell you. I'm not even going to look it up. But it was the Second Amendment to the Constitution, right? So the First Amendment is free speech. The second one is a right to bear arms. It had been argued on the Supreme Court and lower courts. Many different people argued whether that meant that each individual has the right to own and bear arms. In the 60s or 70s, the Black Panther movement found a good way to be able to argue that it is those folks who are individuals who should be able to bear arms. Now, it then got monopolized by the National Rifle Association, right? The NRA, who was about to go out of business. And there were a few folks that came together and said, here's how we should focus this. Now, I do not believe that people should not have guns in the United States because it's too late. We're already long past the fact that many people have guns. They've been brought in illegally, legally, whatever. There are way too many guns to get rid of them. So you can't stop it. The only thing you can do now is you can operate it the way you operate other heavy machinery, that can have a deadly impact on other people. For instance, to drive a car, you have to get a license. You have to renew your license every so often. When you drive a vehicle, you have to wear a seatbelt. You know how many people argued against being forced to wear seatbelts? Like in the beginning, people were like, what? Do you know you can get pulled over in the United States for not wearing your seatbelt, right? And so people hated that. You know, that's something that was instituted in the 80s, if I'm not mistaken. It wasn't a law on the books forever. It became law because of the impact seatbelts have on saving lives, right? And it puts a lower burden on the potential larger community at hand if more people wear seatbelts. I know that seatbelts saved my life. And so, you know, I think that it's fine that the law requires people wear seatbelts. I also think that it makes sense that people should have to get a license renewed every so often. And also when you get older, you have to keep taking the test, right? Because they want to ensure that if you're operating this heavy machinery, you are not putting other lives at risk. Why do we not in the United States have like proper licensing, federal licensing laws around the right to bear arms, right? Because it's gonna be a thing that's not going away. Why not have it, right? And I'm saying just like the basics, right? If you're on the no-fly list, if you're not allowed to fly, then you shouldn't be able to have a gun. They still haven't put anything in place that has that. So if you're not allowed to fly in the United States, you can still, like, you're not allowed to get on a flight, you can technically still get a gun. You can also buy a gun very easily at many different places, like a Walmart, like gun shows and things like that. They don't want to get rid of that. Then there's also the idea that you can add automatic assault to weapons as well, right? So like turning a weapon that you usually just shoots once, shoots twice, maybe you empty a clip one by one by pulling the trigger, and then you have to reload. They've now made it so that well, they haven't made it, but there are technologies and things in place that you can now add something that makes it automatic. So that's, you know, they talk about the was it the bump stock, right? Which was used in the Vegas shooting when the guy was in his hotel room shooting down into a crowd of people that were at a concert. It's used, or AR-15, right, which is semi-automatic rapid. If I'm not mistaken, people debate how many rounds per minute, but it's either 60 rounds to some people say as high as 200 rounds in a minute. Now, look, hunting is a thing in the United States. People go hunting. You don't need a machine gun or a automatic rifle to hunt, right? Now, there's also the idea of protecting yourself. I get it. If there are other people with guns and you want to protect yourself with a gun, I get it. I've gone to a gun range. I've shot guns before, right? So I understand the appeal of it, but I do think there needs to be laws in place around getting licenses, renewing your licenses. And remember, if you have to be able to get behind the wheel of a gun, you have to show, the wheel of a gun. If you have to get behind the wheel of a car, you, in some cases, have to have a certain number of driving hours, right? If you're a child getting your driver's license, right? Some states require that you have 50 hours of driving. When I turned 16 in Pennsylvania, I had to have 50 hours of driving before I could drive a vehicle by myself. They should have a certain number of hours at the gun range. They should probably do background checks. I know that people don't like the idea of background checks, but your jobs do a background check. You know, jobs do background checks. When you apply for a job, they do a background check. So why wouldn't they do a background check if you are applying to buy a gun? It should be a part of it. It just should. Now, I think if you have a non-violent drug crime, you probably should not be subject to not being able to get one. But if you have a violent crime in your past, that's something to think about. If you have domestic abuse in your past, it's something they should think about, right? I think those kinds of things should be looked at. If you have had issues with mental illness and things like that, it's something that should be looked at. I think all these things should be a part of the process for looking at gun ownership, right? That's my personal belief. Now, I went on for a while about white supremacy, the Great Replacement Theory, and I think what could be sensible gun laws. I was on a diatribe, so let me hear what you guys have to say, but those are my thoughts. You let me know if you guys agree. If you disagree with me, you let me know what you think. Stephanie Royale says, Tariq Nasheed has put forth an interesting theory that the mass shooting was a hit on the retired policeman because he created a hydrogen-fueled car. Yeah, so here's what we found out. So the guy who worked security tried to protect the people, right? You know, in most of these instances, right, the people who work security in these places tend to run, right? Like it almost always happens. They run away. They just aren't prepared to really deal with this, right? Most people take a security job because they just want to get paid $15 an hour and sit around and just kind of just be there. This guy was a retired police officer. He was figuring out how to make a hydrogen-powered or water-powered car. It looks that I mean, there's a viral video now, and I don't have the video right now, but it looks as if he potentially had invented it. So some people think that, and that's Tariq. Tariq he dabbles a little bit into some conspiracy theories. So, but I like Tariq and I follow him, and I think, yeah, I follow his page. So sometimes he makes a lot of sense. Sometimes, you know, I don't agree with everything he says, but you know, he does have some interesting points. So yeah, I mean, I think, look, That's a possibility. You never know. I'm open to all ideas and possibilities. I'm just not going to say that I know for sure what the issue is there, right? Because there are no facts to back that up. But the police officer, the former police officer who was now working security at this particular supermarket, was unfortunately one of those who lost their life on that day. And so some people do believe that because he was doing that, that was the case. I wouldn't. I think that's a bit of a stretch. I wouldn't go that far. To be honest, there are many other ways that someone who wants to do that could have gotten to him. And why take out 11 other people if you want to just get that one guy? It's not necessary. Doesn't. So to me, I don't know. I just don't vibe with that idea. But nonetheless, I just think that the most important thing is people who were contributing members of society lost their lives on that day for no apparent reason. So Tino says mental health check. Yeah, so agreeing that there should be a mental health check if you should be able to buy a gun. Ms. P says, I agree with everything you said. iTuber is saying Black people always finding some wide-ranging conspiracy. Dude just hated Black people and he's not alone in that feeling. So folks need to accelerate their back to Africa plan. I agree. Listen, I mentioned this last week, the go back to Africa phrase that I heard a few times. My years growing up, I did it, right? And it doesn't mean, like I said, doesn't mean I don't go to the US. I'll be in the US next month. It doesn't mean that you have to do it, but it might be something to look at. You know, I'm not saying that everybody is in danger in the United States at all. But what I'm saying is you are living in a country where there is a subset of people in that society that don't want you there. And a subset of that group that is willing to take actions that are deadly in order to eliminate whether or not you're there or to eliminate you, right? So I just think that it is something to think about for sure. For sure, the Africa plan is something to definitely think about. Tino says Africa plan is the only option. Jose Cruz says white people in the world, the U.S. in particular, are afraid that we, the oppressed class, will rise against them. This, however, has never been the way we have interacted with them. So yeah, so let's talk about this. So if you talk to some of these folks that are fearful with the white replacement theory, right? They get interviewed a lot at like Trump rallies or Marjorie Taylor Greene rallies and people like that, right? Some of the people who are politicians who bring a lot of these folks together. One of the things when they're asked, what are their issues with, you know, something like this white replacement theory or immigrants, their thought process is if they don't like how minorities are treated, but they don't care because they're not a minority. So their fear is that if they become a minority, they will be treated in the same ways that minorities have been treated in the United States for hundreds of years. So it's kind of ironic that the idea that that they don't want to become minorities is because they don't want to be treated how minorities have been treated in the United States, right? And I'm not going to say white people in general, because there are a lot of white people that have nothing to do with this. We're talking about those who are white supremacists. We're talking about those who believe in the Great Replacement Theory. We're talking about those groups of people, right? Many of those people, what they believe is that if one, they'll get replaced, so that means their jobs will be replaced, and some of the things that they're afforded, some of the government programs and things like that will go to others and not to them, right? Others of them also think that like I said, they'll become a minority, and as a minority, they will not have the same rights that they're afforded today, or the rights are there, but they may not be able to get them in the same way that they see what's happening to people of color. So it's interesting, right? Because that same group of people is the most vocal when it comes to locking people up and the rule of law, et cetera, knowing that it disproportionately impacts people of color. But they also are worried that if they become the minority, that would happen. And what Jose Cruz was saying is pretty true, right? Is the idea that people of color have, in general, haven't been known to perpetuate or to do those kinds of things as much in our history. Now, there has been a lot in our history, though, that people don't like to talk about, you know, because we as humans had just been savage as a human race overall in the way we engage with other groups throughout history. In more recent years, though, in general, you know, there's been a lot less of that from at least the African continent. But I mean, at the end of the day, look, there have been instances where you can find where it's all happened. But look, the idea is, I don't think that what they fear is going to happen. It's just unlikely. I think the goal of most people is just to get on equal footing, right? Not to be superior to anyone else, right? Stephanie Royal says, I have 3 plots in Ghana. When I return, I will buy a house. Yes, we should go and get out of America. iTuber says, that's right. Don't give up the blue passport. It's more than earned, but for the folks who can go, they should go there, as there are opportunities to build our people in Africa for Africans. By the way, on that note of passports, right? So of course I have a blue passport. I also have a green passport. What I mean by the green passport is my Sierra Leone passport. And if you are found to have Sierra Leonean ancestry, if you do African ancestry and you are found to have Sierra Leonean ancestry, for those who are new, I've mentioned this before, but I like to say it again. If you come to Sierra Leone, you can get your dual citizenship. What that means is that you can travel around anywhere in West Africa without a visa, and you can stay anywhere. Well, each country has their own rules as it pertains to that, but you can stay for extended periods of time and pay like lower fees to stay, right? So like on my American passport, if I stay in Ghana for a year or longer, my monthly fees I have to pay to the government for overstaying a visa is much higher than I would have to pay as a Sierra Leonean. Now, I have a residency in Ghana right now, so I'm a Ghanaian resident. I'm a non-citizen resident of Ghana, so I can stay on that residency as long as that lasts. But I also can enter Ghana and stay for as long as I want at about, what is it, like $6 a month if I stay beyond the normal time that they give me when they stamp my passport when I enter the country. So just keep that in mind. Just keep that in mind. So something to think about. So look up African ancestry, check to see if you have Sierra Leonean ancestry. If you do, then you can get your Sierra Leonean citizenship. You can come here to Sierra Leone, get that citizenship, and you can then travel to many different places. And also, by the way, just so you know, I just happen to know this, the United States allows you to have 2 other citizenships beyond the United States. So you can have 3 passports if you want, depending on what other country you want to be a national of or a citizen of. You would have to go through the process, but it also allows you to vote in each of the countries, if I am not mistaken. I know for sure I can vote in 2 countries right now. I can vote in the Sierra Leonean election. I can also vote in the U.S. election, and I will be voting in the midterms in October. I'll be voting when I go to the States, and then of course I'll be voting next year here in Sierra Leone as well. So I can't vote in Ghana because I'm not a citizen in Ghana, but I can vote in Sierra Leone and in the United States. So it's beneficial to be able to have it for other reasons too. I mean, there are countries that the United States can't go to, and if you have another passport, you can go there as a citizen of that country. There aren't very many, but you know, obviously with Cuba and going the back and forth on whether or not we're going to be good with Cuba and not, or the United States is going to be good with Cuba, that's something you could do if you wanted to, if you're on your Sierra Leone passport, if there are changes, and there are other places you can go. So yeah, also just like traveling around West Africa in terms of COVID testing and all of that, it's lower for ECOWAS, higher for non-ECOWAS passports. And ECOWAS stands for Economic Community of West African States, 16 countries in total, as we talked about on previous lives. All right, Molly says, African Americans contribute $3 trillion to the U.S. economy. It's time to take that wealth back to Africa, hit America where it hurts, its pockets. Agreed. All right. So that's that story. I don't know if anybody else has anything else to add there on this story about what happened in Buffalo. It is tragic. And I definitely believe that there are many different elements to this and they all need work. Sharon Gooding is saying, I'm trying to get dual citizenship in Barbados. I have a friend who just was in Barbados for 4 months. She just got back to the States. If you don't know her, her name is Cece. We got to do some content together because Cece and I know each other forever, but we've never done content together, and we're both do content for YouTube. As of the last year, we both got on YouTube and started doing content. So we should do some content together for sure. Okay, Rakim Ali says, Kevin Samuels exposed the unflattering truth about modern Western women. That's why he received so much hate. Okay, so on that note, we are going to get into the Kevin Samuels topic. It looks like Rakim Ali is trying to push me there, so we'll go there. Okay, so let's talk about Kevin Samuels. Okay, so okay, let's talk about Kevin Samuels, and we'll get back into some of the other topics. If anybody wants to revisit them, we can get to them, but we've already been in here for an hour, I didn't realize. So let's get to Kevin Samuels, because I have an interesting take on Kevin Samuels that I don't think falls in line with any one group. Here are my thoughts. But first, let's talk about him. So let's just also be clear on who he was and why he went viral, so people understand. And then we can talk a little bit about the hate that's going on, and then we can get to the Kendrick story. So let me go ahead and share my screen. By the way, if you're watching on Instagram Live, click the link that's pinned. You can watch this on YouTube Live. Let's see, share my screen. Let's share that second screen. Okay, so this story is about Kevin Samuels, and this raises a simmering debate between Black women and men. So, wearing his signature glasses, suit and tie, Kevin Samuels casually sat in his chair talking to single 35-year-old Black mother who called into his popular YouTube show to ask for dating advice. The woman who said she has a teenage son and makes 6 figures through her pet grooming business explained that she wants to meet a man on her level who also makes 6 figures. Suggesting that she lowers her standards, Samuels repeatedly insulted her parents, her business, her age, and the fact that she's a mother. Here's exactly what he said. This was their thoughts, but here's what he actually said. 13-year-old son with a sketchy father. Why would a man who is at the top % of earners, who women across the country want that? He said on December 2020 YouTube video that has since gained 2.8 million views. After calling her average looking at best, he then told her to lower expectations. Women like you die alone straight up because you think you're better than men that you qualify for. Okay. So here's what's interesting. There's a couple things to keep in mind about Kevin Samuels. All right, because so he considered himself an image consultant. That's what he called himself. It ended up being more of a dating show because of viral moments like that. So he used to mostly deal with men, actually, and talk to men about how they could better their appearance, get better jobs, because he actually had gone up the corporate ladder. What happened was women started calling in, and he started giving his opinion based on some fact, but the way he did it, with the brutal nature of it, I think was on purpose to get people to come to his YouTube channel, and it worked, right? What actually ended up happening is because of that viral moment, that's the only thing that most people saw, was that he was only talking negatively to Black women. And so there was this issue that Kevin Samuels is only ever talking negatively to Black women, and he doesn't like Black women, he hates Black women. And there were a lot of people who had issues with him, who took issue with him. I will tell you, on a number of occasions, I've gone to see him completely destroy a Black man, a few Black men, and just men in general who called up to his show to try to get some advice. He equally dished it out to men and women. It's just who called more into his show is who he dealt with, right? Now, he also noticed that when he dealt with women in that way, it did help him get more views. I'm sure that had something to do with the way he approached things, but he absolutely approached things in a way that I would never approach things. He also spoke about things as if they were fact, in terms of like, so let me explain what I mean by that. So he said that nobody's going to want her. She has a 13-year-old son with a sketchy child's father, right? And he would say things like they have a worn out womb and things like that. Very, very aggressively over the top things that he would say. I remember I watched a video about him talking about an overweight man saying that he couldn't see his genitals, and that his little genitals meant, and his little pockets meant that he was never going to get the kind of girl that he wanted, right? That was the way he talked to people. In my opinion, that's not the way you do it. I also can say something can be true, and you can also say, unfortunately, that's the way the world works. Maybe that's not how I agree with it, but that's the way it works, right? And so what he would do is he would say to people how people would perceive them, especially the person that these people are looking to partner with for life, right? And what he would say is a fact, right? And he would say very brutal things to people that I think really got on the nerves of very many people, right? And so he kept going viral all the time for the things that he would say, right? So, you know, Stephanie Royal saying Kevin Samuels was a misogynistic man. I honestly don't know if he was misogynistic, because I think the definition of misogynistic means that you hate women. I don't think he hate women. I think he actually, well, I don't know. I don't know if he did or if he didn't. I can't tell you that. All I do know is that he equally dished it out to men and women. Just more women started calling in to his show, and he kept doing it, and it kept going viral for him because, of course, that it was people were hate watching it and sharing it and things of that nature. So OD99 says Kevin Samuels was brutally honest. He may have went too far sometimes. I think he went too far many times. The solution was simple: don't call into his show. That's also true. Flower Child is finding this funny. Stephanie Royal says, how many African-American men are in jail compared to African-American women? African-American women are entering college more than African-American men. We need to stop tearing each other down. We do. But I will say, what he was doing was pointing out things that are true about sometimes the unrealistic nature of we as people, period, and how we date. Now, his audience tend to be people of color and other people. But because I at first saw that video and I was like, come on, bro. Like, did you really have to go that far the way you did? Right. And I just thought it wasn't necessary. And then I watched more videos to get more of an idea of who this person was, because I don't like to make judgments on people based on one video or based on two videos or based on comments on a video. If you guys get my drift, if you get my theme based on last week's discussion, right? Because I do think it matters to get more context for the person. Now, overall, I didn't like his approach. I didn't like his approach at all. I don't think it's necessary to be that abrasive to people who are coming to you for guidance and help. However, people are going to him for guidance and help. And so there are many people who actually feel like they've gained something from those discussions with him, right? Many people may not believe that, but it is true. I mean, people have called in and said it helped change their lives, right? They've made better decisions about who they date and how they think about who they date based on it. Because there is this idea that comes up a lot, is that you whatever you're looking for, you can get. And I will say that if you look in all the right places, and if you become the person that you're looking for, and you become the person that person is looking for, then you can find whatever you want, for sure. However, most people aren't willing to do the work to become that person, to attract the person they're looking for, right? And aren't the person yet that they should be to want or to expect to find the person that they're looking for, right? And so when that is the case, you get a lot of people like Kevin Samuels and many other people who can flood the internet with advice that they can give to people based on their current circumstances and why they can't get who they want to get, right? Now, so he passed away. Basically, he passed away, I think last week or 8 days ago, suddenly in the act, we'll put it that way. And so what ended up happening is this viral moments online of different people responding to his passing. And I want to play something for you guys because I want to be very clear on this, right? He, as far as we know, didn't commit any crimes. As far as he know, he hasn't killed anyone. So the idea of saying that this is what he had coming to him is tough, right? Because I think it's a disproportionate response to what he did, right? Because what he was doing, people were finding helpful and people were calling into him, right? He wasn't reaching out to people and saying this stuff to people. People were calling in to him for advice, right? So if they're calling into him for advice, he's giving that advice. That's what they chose to do, right? But I want to play this video because I thought it was interesting, because when it happened, I saw my timeline filled with people saying he got what he deserved. That's karma. I heard a lot of people saying it's karma. And I just don't think that that's the case, right? Like, I wouldn't call that karma. I would say that, the guy actually had cancer in his early 20s, if I'm not mistaken, or his late teens. And so he already probably was more at risk for different kinds of things. But I want to share with you guys something that happened recently, because Vivica A. Fox, she's on Fox Soul. And I saw this video and I thought it was interesting because, they do commentary on things that are happening in the news. Obviously she's iconic actress in the Black community, right? Someone who's been in all the major films, right? Set It Off is probably the one that people know her for getting her start. Two Can Play That Game, all these different movies, so many different movies. Oh, she was even in Kill Bill. So she was in so many different movies, very well-known actress. But she had something to say, and I want to play this and then give you my thoughts afterwards.
This man was a hypocrite, in my honest opinion. He really was. I didn't find anything about him to be healing. He insulted African-American women on a consistent basis. One of his last statements that he said was that if you're over 38 and you haven't married or something like that, that you're no good and disposable. To me, it was a shock jock. And, I hope this is teaching folks a lesson about the karma that you put out, the negativity that you put out in the world, that when karma comes knocking at your door, she might not be so kind. So, the fact that he killed over real quick and was supposedly with a woman that we don't yet know the nationality, rest in peace.
So, yeah, I mean, look, like I said, I don't agree with how he did things. I'm not even a fan of who he was, but the way to be able to speak about death in that way, because you disagree with the way somebody sees something, that's a tough one, right? I can't condone that viewpoint at all. Now she's right about some of the things he said. He was disrespectful to Black women, but also Black men, but to people in general, not even just Black women. There were other women who called in. It was just who the audience was that called in, right? I think what people like Vivica here and other people fail to realize is that people were calling in to ask for his advice. They wanted his advice, right? Now, some people did call in to argue, right? And a lot of times unsuccessfully. But what he was trying to point out, right? And because two things can be true, right? He could have been an a-hole about how he approached it, but also what he said could also have been true. And what I mean is this: the older you are, the more challenging it is to find a life partner, right? That is just the truth. Now, you can say that and say it shouldn't be that way. You can say that and say it doesn't mean that you won't, but he didn't do that, right? He chose to approach it in another way. I don't know exactly what he said, but her quote, she quoted what she remembered that he said, but I'm sure he said something along those lines. And so I completely disagree with that. But I think it's important to tell someone what to expect if you happen to fall into that category and you are looking for a life partner, right? Unfortunately, because the way he approached things, you have many people who agree with her that, one, they see it as he only attacked Black women, which is wrong, right? And two, they see it as it was his karma. I mean, she said he killed over. She even kind of smirked a little bit. And you can't really see it too much in her face because of she had a good bit of work done. So you can't really see the expression she was trying to make. But I think she was trying to give it a smirk, killed over, and trying to be funny about it. I don't think death is funny at all, right? And even if it's someone who I disagree with, I don't like, unless they did something as heinous as killed, or some other thing that is really heinous, I can't say that your karma is you dying. That's excessive, right? That's excessive. At least that's what I believe. And so I think that's the problem, is that the argument has gone from talking about the substance of his discussions, right? And whether or not some of what he talked about was true, whether it should be or shouldn't be true, because we should be talking about the fact that that is the case, and why is it the case, and why are we allowing it to be the case? Some of those things, right? Like being over a certain age makes you less desirable, whatever. We should be talking about those things, right? Because those things are true, right? As opposed to saying that he got what he deserved, what he got coming to him, karma, that he deserved to die for saying the things that he said. Miss P says, why would anyone want advice from someone who is that disrespectful? That's a good question. I'm gonna tell you something. I'm not calling into someone who's gonna talk to me like that. I'm not and in public, I'm not subjecting myself to that in public. Now, I had a football coach that was aggressive, who would say a lot of aggressive things. You probably can't say those kinds of things now. This is in the late 90s, early 2000s. You probably can't say those now. But he did make me better in his approach. And a lot of times he would say a lot of wild stuff. We had some coaches that would say wild stuff. But like, why would anybody subject themselves to call into a public forum to be talked to in that way? I don't know. But these people were desperate. They obviously were not finding what they were looking for, and they were hoping that he could offer those answers for them. But yeah, I wouldn't have done it. I'm with you on that. Peace, brother. See you on the other side one day. Jose Cruz, peace, man. I know you always I think you're either leaving work or going to work, so appreciate you for joining. Rakim Ali says, Black American men have been completely emasculated by the Black American woman. Okay. Here's where I am on this one. Because I think that this conversation, I think, has been statements like that, like blanket statements, I think you have to dissect those a bit, and you have to have context. And there's a lot that needs to be discussed when you say something like this. I will say this. Independence has a lot of times turned into the discussion a lot of times of other people being less than. And because there are instances where, as I think someone pointed out earlier, I think Stephanie or someone else, that a lot of Black men are in jail or have been convicted of non-violent drug crimes, or have been convicted of crimes they did not commit, or in jail because they can't afford to get out because of the cash bail system or whatever. They have records. They have a hard time getting jobs, right? There is an issue, systemic issues in the United States that lead to that. But also they are educating themselves at a lower rate in the United States than Black women. So you are finding it that Black women are now getting to a place where they're starting to earn more than Black men in a lot of cases. And they're more highly educated than Black men in a lot of cases. I would tell you, I have a group of friends here, all Sierra Leoneans who grew up in the States. They all have higher education than me. I have a bachelor's degree, but they all have master's degrees. And most of the women that I know actually do have higher level education than me, or perform better than I did in school. It's just a fact. But I will say this. There are a lot of conversations happening that can be demeaning and that can be emasculating, because we as Black men haven't really done ourselves too many favors as it pertains to how we have been dealing with Black women throughout the years, in our music in particular, and in our entertainment, how they're written into movies and film and all of those kinds of things, right? So, you know, you kind of have this pendulum swinging where you have this thing happening. And then there are people who are in the middle who want everybody to get along. And that's the majority of people, right? There are people who see that, look, there are things like that are happening, but you have people who are saying like, look, but we still need to work together. And I think that should be what this should be teaching us, right? Because the reason why sometimes it hurts what he's saying, not only is because of how he's saying it, but it's also what he's saying. And what he's saying is true, right? Like, we all know that if you are a woman of any race, as you get older, people will tell you are less desirable. I mean, your entertainment, no matter what kind of entertainment you like, they will change the kind of roles that you get, right? They will frame you differently, right, in these kinds of roles as you get older. It is a part of how society looks at things. And so if we know that to be true, we should maybe be trying to change those things for the better, right? And so in my mind, I think that we should be changing those things instead of arguing about how it makes you feel, right? Because I think that's what really ends up coming about these things. So no one should celebrate another person's death. Agreed, 100%. Stephanie Rowe said he put a lot of negativity. If you speak it, negativity will come back to you. I've experienced it myself. Yeah, I agree, but like death, I don't know if death is the negativity, right? Like, you know, like I know a lot of people believe in karma, and the idea of karma also actually can be seen a little bit in science, right? Every action has an equal and opposite reaction, right? Let's thank Albert Einstein, at least for publicizing that. I don't know if he's the one who came up with it, but it seems as if he did. But that's the same idea, right? And then there are different religions and belief systems that believe something similar to that, right? You put out good into the world, you get good back. You put out bad into the world, you get bad back. But do you think that because he's offering a service, by the way, a paid service. People are paying him to come to him for this. So he's offering paid service. So you think that by offering this paid service, the karma that he got was death? I don't know. I'm not sure. I can say that that's a direct correlation. Not to me. Unless maybe there's a previous life, if you believe in that or something like that, and he did some damage there. But I don't know. It's not an equal and opposite reaction. I don't think it's the same. I can't imagine that is the reason, you know, because he had bad issues and experiences before we knew him, before he was doing this. And who knows what kind of person he was in his early 20s, but he had gone through cancer, right? So you might think that he should get good karma because he's gone through something so negative, right? Who knows, right? So I don't know if I can go with the death being the negativity. Okay, so Stephanie's saying no, he didn't deserve to die. Got you. Okay, Manelik says, I believe he degraded so many men and women because of the hate he had for himself. That's also possible. I've also seen other interviews with him where he's talked about what he's done. And, you know, when he left his corporate job, he was doing really well for himself, you know, like financially. But who knows how he was feeling inside, right? What he was going through, what he was dealing with. Who knows? Maybe that could be true. I don't know. Odie99 says, I offer dating advice, $9.99 for the first 20 minutes. Okay. $99.99 actually, not even at $9.99, $99.99 for the first 20 minutes. Flower Child says, most people need to seek therapy instead of validation. 100%. Seek therapy instead of validation, but also seek advice from people who can give you constructive criticism, not just hurl insults at you, for sure. Sheriff Sunday says, hello, bro. Hello, Sheriff. Ms. P says, I'm a Black American woman and I have never emasculated a man. So I take offense to that comment. So this is why I say you can't make a blanket comment for everyone, right? Because it's unfair. I have been emasculated by maybe one or two Black women, but I wouldn't say that all do, because I have very many that are very, very encouraging, that have been encouraging at every step of the way. Some of the people who are the biggest supporters in my life, biggest influences in my life have been Black women, including my mother, including my sisters, and including friends of mine. So I would for sure say that it's really about who you become as a person and who you attract around you, because you attract who you are. Sometimes you attract a little bit less than who you are. So that's why you need to be extraordinary to attract the ordinary. Right. And so if you want to get better, you need to do better and become better. And I think that was part of Kevin Samuel's message, even though it was lost in the way he did it. But I think that is true. Right. And so, when you get emasculated by certain types of women, it's because you're attracting that kind of person into your life, which means you have to do work on yourself to not be around those kinds of people. Right. And I would say to those women who are dealing with men who they think are not so valuable, they also need to do some more work on themselves to find men who are better to be around. Stephanie Rowe says Rakim needs to stop generalizing. Okay, so I haven't seen what Rakim said. I guess it's been okay. Yeah, he said completely demasculated. Okay, emasculated. Stephanie Rowe says Rakim needs to stop generalizing. I've supported my husband, and as a result of encouraging him, I've been making a better salary. But we do have to be clear, though, on one thing, that there are trends that are happening, even though we don't want to make blanket statements about groups of people, there are trends that are happening, and there are things that are happening right now. There is a city girl movement, right? And I like the city girls. I enjoy their music. They're fun to watch. The story is interesting. I watched a little documentary about them before JT went to jail. You guys know I'm really into music, so I randomly know all these different facts. But I will say this. There is this idea. Okay, actually, Cardi B had the song, right? Up. You know, if it's up, then it's up. If it's up, whatever. And one of the words she said, broke ends don't deserve no. And then there's like a chorus in the background. I know that's right, right? So when you think about that, right? I will tell you, when I'm out in the club, if I'm out somewhere or at a party or at a lounge or something, that song comes on, right? The DJ always stops at that point, and you can see the whole room going, broke ends don't deserve no. I know that's right. And everybody does it, right? So look, and it doesn't mean that they all believe it in their everyday lives, but there's some version of it that they do believe, right? And there are a lot of people living based on that, right? Most men, I will tell you this right now, most men are looking to try to make more money because it makes them more attractive, right? Just to be very honest with you, and we should all know this, right? But and there's some, it's there, and it's not all like a bad thing, right? I mean, it's viability. It's the, when you think about it as someone as the opposite sex or someone who's the same sex, whatever, if you're attracted to men, right? In general, the idea is if that person is financially stable, they can take care of you and your children and more, right? And the ongoing generations, there are more viability for procreation and for the development of your offspring. So I'm not going to say that it's all bad for the idea to want someone who is financially stable, but there are more and more videos going viral of women who make half of what they say their man needs to make. I need a man that makes 6 figures. I need a man that makes upper 6 figures. I need a man that makes 7 figures, right? The expectation that someone makes that kind of money without even other elements, right? Like other elements about their personality and who they are, which should be more important. They're looking at those things. And when you ask a lot of these people what they think about men who might make less than them or less than that, because I know it's tough. Somebody who makes less than you, I know it's tough because it is tough and I get it. But someone who makes the same as you or a little bit more than you, a lot of women will say they don't want that either, right? They prefer a man who makes significantly more because of what's been indoctrinated, right? It's just, it is a part of it. So I wanted to mention that because I don't like blanket statements. And so I try to be careful with how I phrase things and say a lot of people, or you see growing trends and things like that, because I don't want to make blanket statements about everyone. But I would say that these trends are growing and they're big. And I will tell you myself, in my own personal life, I can tell you how things changed for me once I started making a different income and I moved to a new tax bracket. When I started having events at my apartment, certain women who I had been pursuing, who hadn't wanted to give me the time of day, but may have seen my living conditions, I became instantly more attractive to them. Or when I would go on dates sometimes, and this is because I hadn't done enough work on myself. I had done work to a point, and then I had gotten rid of doing some more of that work, and then I started attracting these kinds of women again. But when I moved to LA and I was working at Hulu, I remember going on dates, because, it was on my dating profile, Hulu, and girls would be on a date. It's like, oh, tell me about your job at Hulu. And ask more about my career and then being impressed with the apartment and all of that kind of stuff, and really didn't know anything about me and who I was and what led me to that career and what led me to be able to earn that kind of an income, right? It was more about the income. And so I just want to be very clear that does happen. I spent a lot of time on that, I know, but I think we just need to be fair to everyone on this. But I also have a friend who makes 6 figures, right? And I've also told her, because she also does a lot of work on herself, right? Like if she makes mistakes, she's working to fix it. She's been reading books about it. She's been trying to learn about doing things that can make herself better. So I've also told her that she shouldn't date anyone who is making less than her, unless it's like maybe it should be at her more part or a little bit more, because she also has very expensive taste and she spends a lot of money herself. And the challenge that she would have is if she dates someone else, they're not going to really be able to help her to continue that lifestyle, right? She may actually have to help them in their lifestyle and help them keep up. So I can also understand that too. But I think if you build yourself to be the kind of person that you want to attract, then you shouldn't want somebody less. And OD99 says they didn't want regular Joe. They wanted high value Joe, or high income Joe at least. Because I know some people are equating high value with high income, and I don't think it's the same thing. Let's also be very clear. This idea of a high value man is a person who makes six figures, who has a network of people who make six figures. What's always talked about is their professionalism, the professional area and elements of their lives. And one of the things that Kevin Samuels did too. And all of this red pill internet does that. I think a high value person is a person who is working on themselves to build themselves, to gain new skills, to become a better person, who learns from their mistakes. That's a high value person. That person, if they do all the right things and are learning new skills and are learning productive skills in society, can also be a high net worth person as well. And I think that can be an element to high value, but I don't think it should be the what you decide to consider what a high value person is. And I also don't believe that there's no such thing as a high value woman. I disagree with what a lot of these folks say is that, okay, so one of the things they say, and I promise we'll move on to the Kendrick thing because now this has been an hour and 36 minutes. But you know, I'm off on my high horse right now talking about this because this is what I believe. And these are the conversations I have with my friends and stuff here or in the States. So I'm just having these conversations with you all, and it's on the topic of Kevin Samuels. And I got a lot to say about the red pill internet. I got a lot to say about it, but I'm not gonna spend too much time on it. But what I'll say is this. There is a such thing as a high value woman. Obviously, what Kevin Samuels and other people purport is that a woman's value is based in the man that she's with. Now, I will say this. Unfortunately, a lot of society does place value on women based on who they are with. And it shouldn't be based on who they are with. Oh, what's up, Sean? Shout out to Sean. My guy Sean from LA, as a matter of fact, is on the Instagram live. That is part of it. That is true. But there are many high value women who do all the things that I said a man should do to become high value, right? And if they do those things, they are a high value woman, regardless of whether or not they're with a man or not. Now, that's in my opinion. Unfortunately, there are many people around this world who don't agree with that, right? And so I think that is the way I look at it. But I definitely think there are high value women. How could you possibly say there are only high value men and there are no high value women? To me, I disagree with that. There are some things that the red pill internet says that I agree with. That's not one of them. All right, so Samantha Larby just got here. Said, hey, just got here. What's up, Samantha? Appreciate you joining. Sheriff Sunday said, bro, where are you from? Okay, real quick, where am I from? So I have a general American accent. You can't tell from where in the United States I'm from. For a while, you could kind of tell where I would say certain words that were like New York related words, but I don't really anymore. So my family is from Sierra Leone, West Africa. Both my parents were born and raised there. I was born in the U.S. I was born in New York, but I went to boarding school till I was 18 in Pennsylvania. And then I went to school in Florida for a year and moved back to New York as an adult. So I lived in New York most of my adult life, spent 4 years in LA, 1 year during the pandemic in Vermont or wherever. And then I've been in Ghana ever since. So that is where I'm from. Hope that answers your question. Okay, Rakim, bro, you're trying to start some trouble here. Okay, let's look at what Rakim said before we move on. Do Black Western women have unrealistic and delusional dating expectations? Absolutely, he says. But are we allowed to say that without any blowbacks? Okay, so here's what I will say. I think people overall have unrealistic expectations for what they want in a person because they're not willing to become the person that they need to be to attract the person that they want. So I don't care if you're a Black woman, Black man, white man, but in this, of course, we're talking authentic African, so we're sticking to this particular group. But I know some people who watch the lives and who join happen to be people of other races. So those of you, this applies to you as well. I will say this. Many people have unrealistic expectations for what they want because they believe that they deserve what they want just because they deserve it. Because there's an entitled nature of just people on the planet. Many people are just entitled. And it also includes who they expect to receive as a mate. They're just entitled overall. And I think that they're incorrect in thinking that's what they want. Now, I will tell you myself, I have learned where I am on the scale of attractive male scale, right? So I know where I'm at on that scale, because I know when I'm with people or when I use dating apps and people who are taller or happen to be in that model realm, where, you know, the groups of women they attract and what I attract. I know, and I always knew, in order to attract the kind of woman that I wanted, I needed to become a better person. It wasn't going to be based on my looks. It just wasn't. I'm not saying that I don't look good, because I like the way I look. But what I'm saying is, I know that I can't attract that type of woman that I wanted to attract, having the mindset that I had when I was 24 and 25 years old. Now, I spent the subsequent 15 years working on myself, personal development, learning about things in the world, learning new skills, to make myself a better person, which in turn changed or increased the pool of potential mates, right? And I think that that works for everyone, right? And I also decided what I was interested in and what I wanted and where to find them, right? And so for me, I don't have as much of a challenge finding potential mates, but I just know I haven't found who is going to be my life partner yet, because I still need more work to do. I still got more work to do, because if I didn't have more work to do, I would have found her already. So that's the case, right? Her or the multiple hers, if possible. We talked about that before. I'm kind of joking, but kind of not. So anyway, so to be serious though, I think that, you know, you're right in the sense that people have unrealistic, delusional expectations about dating. And that's one other thing that I will mention that I do agree with the right pill on. And you guys, we all need to figure out how we come to an understanding on this, because this is a conversation I have all the time with my female friends, is this. We talk about chivalry being dead, right? We also talk about the pay gap and closing the pay gap, which there's some disputes on the pay gap. There are a lot of disputes on this pay gap thing because of less hours worked and the roles that women are willing to work in or get skills to work in, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know. I will say this. I do know one thing that I think all of you women should take is that I know two different women that I've known personally really well who have gotten every bit of every amount of money that they have deserved because they were willing to ask for it. But I also know other women who haven't known how to ask for it or were unwilling to because of the fear that they would hear no. Whereas in general, men tend to be more willing to ask for higher numbers, to ask for raises. It just happens that way. I have managed women before. I've had to advocate for people who've worked for me who didn't ask for it. I had guys that worked for me that would ask for it when they didn't deserve it. Always. I had a guy, this one guy that I'll always remember this guy. I remember hiring my first woman I ever hired. She's now an SVP of sales, and she's now gone on. She's SVP at a company. She's now gone on to do great things. She definitely has no problem now, but back then she would not ask. And there was this other guy that was delusional that would ask. So the reason why I'm saying all that is to say this. There are reasons why there's that pay gap between genders, and we can dispute the reasons. We can all agree that it shouldn't be that way, but it is that way, and there are some reasons for it, whatever. If we get to equal pay, right? And if we get to equality within society, is chivalry still necessary, right? Are all those things still necessary? Does the man still have to pay the bill? Does the man still have to pay, like for dinner? Does the man still have to pay the bills in the house, right? This is an open-ended question. This is not me saying that we should or we shouldn't or way it should go, because at the end of the day, I live in the world as it is today, so I operate within the world as it is today. I'm not delusional. I operate in the world as it is today. So I pay for dates. I pay for the first date, always. More than the first date. I pay for many dates. But you know, but I just want to make sure we talk about this because we need to talk about this in a realistic manner. Because when he's talking about being delusional, what he's saying is there are women here today who will say they want a traditional man, right? But they themselves aren't traditional, right? Because a traditional man comes with its pros and cons, right? So that guy who was, you know, opening every door, taking off his jacket to put it over the puddle so you could walk over it, was also the guy that was like, you know, make me a sandwich. And like, when is dinner going to be ready? And like, you know, when are you going to do the laundry? When are you going to clean the floors? Right? Like, that was also that guy. So, you know, we have to kind of understand that the traditional man is not necessarily in line with what a lot of people want in their man today, in terms of being able for them to have the freedoms and to be able to move around the world the way they want to. So do we need chivalry still? You know, here's an example from me, right, that I'll give you. And you guys can take this as you will, but this is how I operate. If I'm dating someone, right, I'm not going to carry her purse because she's perfectly capable of carrying her purse, but I'll open the door for her. Now, if she has a heavy suitcase that I know she can't carry, or it's going to be a burden on her, and it's not going to be as much of a burden on me, I will carry it, of course, right? I will. So like, in that sense, that's where I do it. And of course I open doors and all of that because I live in today's world. But I think that certain elements to where we were before, I think you know, women are not like dainty, helpless people either, right? And so we also need to ensure that we are approaching our women that way as well. So I just want to be very clear on that. I don't know what you guys think about that. Let me see what some of the comments are before I move on. Stephanie Royal saying some LA girls are very materialistic and not so interested in intelligent men. Yes, I will say that can be true. Now, Los Angeles is an interesting city, right? First of all, my guy Sean, he found someone and he had a baby. So and a couple other people I know have found people in Los Angeles. But here's what I will say. That's a city that's hard to judge in terms of the overall world, just like the fresh and fit guys are in Miami, and that's a specific world, because in those worlds, the illusions of people create delusional expectations. What I mean is that people are leading with their wallets or they're leading with their bodies, right? And so that creates this strange world where that is what people are looking for, and they're not looking for any substance behind the other ones, right? So some women are looking for men with a lot of money with no substance. A lot of those men are looking for women with manufactured bodies with no substance, right? And so those people are actually the ones who are perpetuating a lot of the conversations that are happening when we should really be talking like this, right? In a nuanced way, right? You have to be able to understand how people are seeing things from all angles. But Sean is saying definitely hard in LA on both sides. It is. I will tell you, when I dated in LA, it was much more casual dating. I never found anybody. I found one person that I could be serious with. We were just a little bit further apart in age. She was ready to move a whole lot faster than I was. She was born in the 70s, put it that way. I was born in 84. So we had a 7-year age difference or so. So I wasn't ready yet. But someone like her was like, so there are people there. And she worked in entertainment and everything. Christabella says, hit that thumbs up button, fam. Thank you. I appreciate it. Samantha says, lots of money isn't equal to high value. Agreed. That's what I was saying before, for sure. Samantha Barty says, or the size of her waist. Agreed. 100%. Sharon was agreeing with me. Absolutely. Rakim says the prosperity gospel has duped always back to the black women thing, has duped black women into believing that they can have any high income man with multiple baby daddies and never being married to. Okay, so this is also red pill, like very red pill type talk, right? So and let me just kind of real quick do a quick definition of red pill, just so for everybody knows, for everyone who doesn't know, or so everyone knows. Okay, there we go. Red pill is basically, was the red or blue pill, red or green pill, red or blue pill from the Matrix, right? You take the blue pill, you go back to sleep and you go back to the world you knew. You take the red pill and you wake up, right? And you wake up to the world that's the real world in the Matrix, right? Or out of the Matrix. And so the idea of the red pill is these people have taken the red pill and they're out of the matrix of feminism and all these other things that they say are like detrimental. And these conversations that are happening are these kinds of conversations. So when I say red pill, that's what I'm referring to. Now, let me go back to what Rakim is saying here, because this is a lot of the red pill talking points. And I think we need to dissect these and be a little bit more specific about individual pieces of this. I don't want us to be blanketing entire groups. And I think we should be very clear how we look at some of these things. So that they can have any high income man with multiple baby daddies and never being married. Now, granted, there are people who happen to fall into that latter category who want high income people, right? Sure. There are also people who don't have the multiple baby daddies or don't have the, well, the never being married thing is, I don't know. That's technically not an issue. I think more of the times is if you've been married and divorced, right? I think that'd be more the issue, where some people might consider that maybe less desirable. But so I think what happens is that the extreme, it's always the extreme in these things. And most people aren't living in the extremes, right? Like there are many people who just want what they want because they're taught that that's what they should want, right? Because the idea is that you need to be able to be taken care of, right? A lot of times that's what a lot of women are told. They're told to be taken care of. They need to be taken care of, right? And so when it comes to that, the United States is a very expensive place to live in a lot of cities. So in order to be taken care of, somebody needs to be very high income. And so that does happen a lot. It does happen a lot. And so I think we should just be careful when we just kind of blanket all Black women like this. And then especially when you use the multiple baby daddies and never being married, because the thing is, here's the issue, right? There has to be the responsibility at some point of the men in these instances who have also taken part in this, right? Like a girl doesn't end up having a baby daddy without having sex with somebody who didn't wear protection, right? So like she was there, he was there. We can't just do the multiple baby daddies thing, right? Like let's try to like be more fair about this narrative and this topic, right? At least that's what I believe anyway. Okay, so my guy Sean says, I believe it is a trick in our society to keep us Black people divided, because the true powerhouse of our ascendance has been the Black family. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of arguments about breaking up the Black family through government aid and things like that. But I know what you meant. Sean. I got you. Yeah, so there's a lot of conversations about that, and that's possible, maybe. But yeah, I would say that is a challenge. That is a challenge. The separation between the Black family and the idea that raising a child as a single parent it's noble to do if you have to do it, but ideally everybody does better with multiple role models that are doing the right thing. So obviously, if it's doing the right thing, right? And you know, Sean says accountability is key, 100%. So okay, couple things. So Sheriff Sunday asked me originally where I was from. He said, "Bro, you look like a Nigerian. Bro, are you from Nigeria? You look like Nigerian." I'm probably somewhat I do have some Nigerian in my blood for sure. I don't know how much, how far back it goes, but I know there's some family on my mother's side. And yes, so I do have some Nigerian in my blood. I don't know, you know, how many generations back it is and what percentage of my DNA is Nigerian. Some people might say that. I've seen that in some of the comments that when I've done recent content about Nigeria. So maybe, I don't know. Samantha Labardi says, "Hey, what's up, Samantha?" Sheriff Sunday says, "Bro, you look Nigerian." Okay. Some people say that. Samantha Labardi's laughing. I don't know at what. It's something I must have said earlier. Stephanie Royal says, "Any woman that gets you would be very, very lucky lady." I appreciate that. I'd like to think so too. But I'm really picky and I'm taking my time. I'm not rushing into anything. Because when I do get married, it's for life. And I'm not trying to divorce. It's not ideal. So Wina says, "I understand the fact that finance matters in a relationship, but I don't think it's the ultimate quality. I think personality, goals, and values matter." Yeah, here's another thing I would say too, because one of the arguments on the other side is like the idea of dating a man based on his potential, right? And I think it's very important. Let's talk about potential, right? Because The example I'll give is the show Insecure, right? Lawrence, right? Lawrence is his name. He was sulking on that couch for 3 years, talking about my startup isn't working, crying all the time about his startup. And everybody was, a lot of people were mad that, Issa's character wasn't going to stick by him. And then, of course, the show, which I don't think was a fair depiction of how people really work, the show had him all of a sudden at a 6-figure job, and he's just killing it and crushing it. It doesn't work that way. You don't wallow in self-pity for 3 years and then all of a sudden you're in a 6-figure job. You have to do work to get there. And that work that those people do is the potential you should be looking for. So if you're looking for a partner and you're saying, okay, he's not making, or she's not where she wants to be yet, or he's not where he wants to be yet, you have to look at their actions. Are they taking action to try to move in that direction? Are they constantly taking consistent action daily to move in that direction? It's obvious when you see it. Trust me. It's obvious when you see it. I'm a person who's made 6 figures throughout my life at different times, and I've made less than 6 figures, more than 6 figures, and significant amounts of money at some point in time. I've made way more money than I make now, right? In order to get there, that took 13 to 15 years of consistent daily action. I tell you guys, I have this YouTube channel. I put out 3 videos a week, right? So I'm at like 4,500 subscribers in a little over a year and a half, right? Most people, unless they're trolling people or like bikini, whatever, usually don't get to that level of subscribers in that time frame. I hit monetization in 4 months. Now, I don't say that because I'm trying to brag, because who cares? I'm saying that because I took consistent daily action and I followed what other people did to learn how to get those results, right? And so when it comes to picking your partner, right? When Sawana's talking about goals and values that matter, it should be people who are working on those goals, who are working on those values daily. It just doesn't come out of nowhere. So somebody might have some dreams and goals, but they're dreams until you wake up and start working on them, right? It's just a dream until you wake up and start working on it. So, so some people dream about success, other people stay up to make it happen. That was a quote that I remember posting on my Facebook wall back in 2009 when I first started getting into personal development and really started working on learning new skills. And I will tell you, there was a pivotal point in my life where I was on food stamps and on unemployment, and I didn't really value myself much. And I started working on my value, and my income followed, right? And so, and the work ethic I have is very few people have it. So I can understand why it's difficult to get to achieve what I have achieved. But when you go along and do that work, other things happen for you. You know, I think I told you guys with the job that I have currently, 3 things happened for me to get this job where I can work remotely with a US-based income on US dollars, and I can live in West Africa. I could be in Sierra Leone, I was in Nigeria, and I was in Ghana. 3 things happened along since 2012 that led to this. In 2012, I invested $3,000 in my personal money in a friend's startup because I believed in his business. I then found someone else who invested $100,000 in that friend's startup. Random thing that I did because I believed in that business and I worked hard to figure that out, and I did that, right? That person happens to be married to or connected to the founder of the company I work for today. That person spoke highly of me while they were out golfing one day. That was one thing that helped me get this job. Here's something else. In 2012, I was at a company where Walmart was onboarded as a company that we're working with. And I did everything I could to blow out all of their goals that Walmart needed, their revenue goals. The person who was the salesperson who brought in Walmart remembered that. And when he went to another company, he brought me in at a $40,000 pay raise, and then again gave me an $80,000 pay raise in that job because he saw what I had done. And I did a lot of work to learn the skills that I needed to learn to be able to do that for Walmart. The person, when I got that raise and when I got that new role, I was the head of US demand. The person who was on the opposite end of that business, the VP of supply, she's the chief growth officer at the company I work at now, right? I also worked with her while she was consulting somewhere else with a client that was really difficult to deal with. But because I learned so much, I was able to work with them and also help them find out new ways to generate revenue. She saw that, and all of that helped her decide to try to bring me on and be an advocate for me at this new company. So those 3 or 4 different things are things that happen along the way because I've been busting my behind all the way through till now, right? I've also been willing to take pay cuts. You know, I got paid $30,000 for a year from 2021 to 2022 for a year. For my job, I was getting paid $30,000. It's after tax, right? Just so you know, after I had made 6 figures in the US, because I knew it was necessary for me to learn something. Now, most people wouldn't be willing to do that, but I was willing to do that because I had a skill set that I wanted to learn, and I knew that I was going to be able to achieve more by doing that. So I get really passionate about this stuff because, you know, in order to reach some of those heights, you have to be able to do the work on yourself that will allow you to get there. And so if you guys are looking for a partner that is going to have all the things that you're looking for, you need to be willing to do that kind of work on yourself. And then when you do that kind of work, you can recognize it in other people. And the reason why I use that example from Insecure is because that guy was on the couch for 3 years talking about a startup and wasn't doing anything and was complaining, all of a sudden jumped to a 6-figure job. That's not how it works. He had to be working on stuff consistently for those 3 years to get to that 6-figure job. So anyway, I say all that. I went off for a while on that. No Narrative says, hey, Joe, what's up, No Narrative? Shout out to you for joining. YOA says, not manufactured bodies. Ciao. Oh, yeah. By the way, I used to think this said chili. I learned later that this is child, like child. I'm semi-old man when it comes to internet language. So yeah, I mean, look, when I said manufactured body, I was talking about Miami and LA because of what they think is the most attractive. So yeah, I did say that. By the way, do what you do. No judgment. People do whatever they need to do. I always think about what's causing them to do it, right? And so that's the only thing I think about. Miss P says, I love Insecure. I was sad when it ended. I was too. I think it was a good show. Some things that I took issues with. Actually, Sean, we used to have viewing parties of Insecure when I was in LA. And Sean came to a couple of those. So Sean's been the one commenting on Instagram Live. So one thing that Sean is saying before I move on to the next comment on Instagram, also on YouTube Live, is there needs to be a standard. At the end of the day, if a person never gets to their potential, can you live with that person if that doesn't happen? That's the question you need to ask yourself, 100%. And look, and yeah, that is a good question for sure. Sean says, motivation brother, I thought I was a hard worker. I'm not doing nothing. I'm not doing enough. So yeah, and you know, one of the reasons why I really vibe with Sean, and this is why I say you can recognize it in other people, and why, you know, Sean and I became really cool really fast, is because Sean was working on a clothing line, and it's not easy to work on a clothing line, and he went the hard route. I recommended that he just print t-shirts, start selling those at first, but he was meeting with manufacturers, going to downtown LA. Like, he and I would meet up because I was living in downtown LA. And if anybody knows anything about Los Angeles, near downtown LA is where you go to find all the factories and all the clothes stuff. You know, American Apparel infamously was based down there and all of that. Anyway, and so I saw his hard work. He had a day job, right? And he was doing his day job, but he also was starting this apparel business, and he was hiring models. He was doing photo shoots. He was going to places. He was going and like meeting with people and building his business. And I was like, this guy is working towards something, because I met him before he started all that work, and he had an idea, and so many people have ideas and don't do it. So I choose friends based on that, and I choose a partner based on that. Yep, he says. All right, cool. So, and so Wina says, oh no, not potential. Ladies, please run. Your partner needs direction and drive. But potential could be a thing, because, you know, if you would have met me at 26, if I was ready to settle down, I was somebody with potential, but I was also acting on it. And so that's the thing. Potential should come with direction and drive, though. But I don't think potential alone, like somebody who seems smart but doesn't do anything, is not alone enough. Okay, so No Narrative says, Relpo conversations are extremely dishonest on both sides, actually. Potential is cute, but building your partner into an ideal person is exhausting. Have to work towards the ideal you every day. Yeah, I agree. I don't think you want to be building anyone, you know, the Build-A-Bear idea is not ideal. Not ideal. The Build-A-Bear idea, not ideal. You don't like, yeah. Which is why I try not to date really young women, because that's my issue, is that they have a long way to go. Age is a challenge. Samantha Barty is clapping. Good. I guess you guys like what I was saying. No Narrative says, I am not at 6 figures, but I'm very close. Still balancing my career and my business. It's not easy. And I'm building a partner to be as ambitious as me. Come ready. Oh, and I'm not building a partner to be as ambitious as me. Come ready. There you go. Boom. Bedina Babe says potential is dangerous. If potential alone, I agree. If it's potential alone, it is dangerous. And my guy Sean is saying that whole new revamp, bigger and better on the clothing line. So I'm looking forward to it. It was dope. It was athleisure wear with inspirational quotes and stuff on it. So I know you changed the name before I left LA, and we haven't really caught up. We got to catch up, by the way, Sean. And I know I keep saying that, but we definitely got to catch up. And I'll be in LA first week in July, so we definitely got to catch up in person when I'm there. Okay, cool. I spent a lot of time on that red pill discussion and Kevin Samuels, because I think it was really important. And I have a lot of opinions, as you can see. And I've talked about this a lot, and I've thought it through a lot. And yeah. So the last thing, we're going to end off on a pretty positive note. Kendrick Lamar put out an album that is titled, what's the album called again? What is it called? Mr. What? Something, something. It's called, I don't even know what it's called. But anyway, we'll take a quick look at Kendrick, what's up with Kendrick, and then watch some of the footage of him in Ghana, because it's been actually really cool to see. I love to see, people in the diaspora come into West Africa and just getting a vibe and seeing things and learning more about where they come from, because this is what we want to see more of, right? I mean, this is what we really need to see more of. I think as we do this more, I think we got to normalize. If there's anything we need to normalize, it's visiting West Africa, but being humble and getting to know the people, for sure. Okay, here's Kendrick Lamar and what was going on.
Lamar's Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers album is...
Okay, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. That's what it's called. That's what it's called. Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers is the name of his album.
Finally here, and Kendrick has been celebrating out in Ghana. Footage of Kendrick hanging out in the African country began circulating right before the album dropped, and now fans are getting even more footage of K-Dot. On Sunday, May 15th, Mr. Morale himself was getting in a game of soccer with some Ghana natives. In the clip that was shared online, Kendrick waits as his team fights for possession before he darts off to attempt to kick the goal, which ends up going awry when the ball gets stolen by a defender. And then another piece of footage shows Kendrick Lamar posing for a picture with the group of guys that he played against. It's unclear how long Kendrick has actually been in Ghana, but based on various clips, it looks like he's planning something big. Rumors were swirling around that Kendrick was visiting Ghana to host a private listening party ahead of the new album's release and is allegedly filming a documentary in the country. According to Apple Music, Kendrick Lamar's 5th studio album is breaking records on their platform. In a tweet, they said, shout out at Kendrick.
All right, so it's more about the album. But there's some of the footage, he was playing FIFA with a couple of kids in Ghana. No camera crew, somebody walked in there and just caught him on video. Just playing. So I think it's cool. I just wanted to mention it because I love to see our diasporans come into West Africa, especially. I'm not there right now, but that's currently where I call home, at least for now. So yeah, it's always good to see it, and I'm always happy to see it. Bedina Babes, I think seems to like that story. Some people might say and not do because they don't know where to start or need reassurance. Oh, this is back on the whole red pill conversation. All right, cool. Well, look, I know we talked about that at length. Really quickly, just going to shout out my boy Sean's company. It's called Perspective Development. And I can't wait to see you too, man. He's saying, I can't wait to see you. He says he has a bottle of Hendrix for me. Sean, we haven't caught up in a long time. I don't drink Hendrix anymore. I don't drink gin at all. I don't drink hard liquor anymore. I barely even drink red wine now. I went vegan in 2020. And with that, I stopped drinking hard liquor. So I actually don't drink hard liquor anymore. I do drink red wine from time to time. So I'll do some red wine when we come out there, maybe a glass or so to celebrate all of your achievements and updates too, because we gotta catch up. You got a whole human that you brought into the planet. So I haven't been back to LA in over a year and a half. So I definitely need to catch up with you for sure. All right, guys. This has been a interesting discussion for sure. I went off on diatribes and rambled a bit, but these are the conversations I like to have about our culture and things going on in our culture, and sometimes the broader culture, but it still applies to us. Hope you guys found it interesting. I really appreciate your engagements in this discussion. Those of you who are new, these are the kinds of conversations that I usually have. Last Monday was a little bit off topic and a little bit different than what they normal kind of conversations are. I do plan to do a separate live weekly. I'm still working out the details of what day that's going to be, and if I'm going to have a consistent co-host or consistent co-hosts, or if I'm going to bring in different co-hosts to be talking about the news of the week. And then I'll use this live normally to kind of talk about my last week, what's been happening with me on the continent, things that are happening around me here in Sierra Leone, Ghana, Nigeria, wherever I am. But that's the goal, right? It's to continue to bring you guys value, to kind of have these conversations, to be a forum for these kinds of discussions. Because I think it's important to have, and these are conversations I have with my people, which is why I know all my people are high value people, because these are the kinds of conversations we have. And sometimes we debate, sometimes we agree, but we have these conversations, and these conversations are nuanced, and we need to continue to have them. So Bedina's just sending a bunch of stuff. Oh, vegan, because I said I was vegan. Got it. Yeah. Fruits and veggies, for sure. Manelik says, great show. Keep up the great work. Thank you. I appreciate it. Ms. P says, this was great as usual. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Stephanie Royal says, really enjoyed this video. Respectful and informative. Thank you. I appreciate it. Sharon Gooden says, informative show this evening. Blessings to you. Thank you guys all for joining. I really appreciate it. Anybody you know who is interested in having these kinds of conversations, who want to talk about what's going on with the great replacement theory, white replacement theory, this whole red pill discussion, and just wants to have a more in-depth conversation and needs to see some nuance, especially if you have people in your lives who don't really have a lot of nuance and they got, 2 hours to kill, send them this video. Make sure you like. Oh, by the way, everybody, go ahead and hit a thumbs up on this before you hang up, before you close out of here. Hit that thumbs up, because we want to make sure that this gets to more people. These videos, unfortunately, don't get as much viewership as the other ones. For instance, I think we had 40 people. It got up to a little bit more than 40 concurrent people on this live today. Last week, when I did the video about Nigerians hating me, or some Nigerians hating me, they had over 100 people on that live, right? And so when it comes to content, I need you guys to ensure that we're sharing more content like this. And what it does is it encourages more people to do content like this. People don't do content like this, and they don't take because I don't take an inflammatory stance, right? The reason why people don't do that is because if I was to take a stance where I was going to say maybe a lot of what Rakim was saying, for instance, and I take an approach that's like a hard line stance, that is what's going to get you more views. And I don't want to do that, right? For me, what's important is to give you the facts as I see them, and it's nuance, right? These are nuanced discussions. And so I believe that that I should continue to do that, but I need your help getting the word out. So make sure you guys thumbs up, share this with people that you know. If you haven't subscribed, of course, subscribe to this channel to ensure that you guys get notifications every time a new video comes out. Once again, guys, thank you all for watching. I really, really appreciate you for joining the live. Oh, there's a couple people still saying stuff. Samantha Labardi, Larby, Samantha Larby says, great live, thank you. Bedina Babe says, unfortunately, drama sells, it's true. And Bedina Babe says, I'm for the high quality content. Well, thank you. I want to continue to give high quality content. That's my goal. All right, guys, thanks for watching. I really appreciate you all. I will be seeing you all in the next video.